Well, let's talk weather for the week ahead as we go through the final few days of July and get set for August. Joining us now, Eric Snodgrass with Nutrient Ag Solutions. Eric, good to talk with you again this week. I know severe weather is on your mind and on the minds of a lot of folks in the upper Midwest. Let's start there. We saw some over the weekend, and we have a pretty significant risk of derecho, straight line winds, and severe weather here for Monday night into Tuesday as well. So let's talk about all of this. What are you seeing, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, we're on the periphery of the heat wave. This is what we expected. And unfortunately, it comes with the risk of damaging winds with most of these storms just because of the time of year it is. So this weekend, yeah, you're right. We saw incredible storms last night blow up in parts of South Dakota, getting into Minnesota. They went through Wisconsin. They're going through Iowa, Illinois this morning, early this morning, coming right over a home for me. I'm not home, as you can clearly tell. I'm actually at an event down here in Florida, speaking at an event for a group out of Georgia. And but I'm worried about what's going on in the northern plains, upper Midwest today. So here it is. Right on the edge of this ridge, we've got a near ideal environment for destabilizing the atmosphere, loaded with moisture, and we've got the right wind shear profile for these storms to very quickly coalesce into a large, damaging squall line, bow echo, or if they're big enough, we would call this a derecho risk event. Just for comparison, that's all I'm going to say this for. Okay. If you think about what happened in August 10th, 2020, excuse me, we had a storm system that came out of North and South Dakota that just plowed its way through that instability into Iowa. Now, I don't think it's going to be the same region today, but what I'm watching is the same setup, not same setup, but a similar setup. And I'm concerned about the eastern sides of the Dakotas getting into Minnesota, Iowa, and eventually we'll just have to see how this progresses farther to the south and east as we go forward in time today. Storm Prediction Center put it out as a moderate risk, so that's pretty high up there on their risk categories. It is way different from that August 10th, 2020 event. That started overnight and then plowed through in the early morning. So we're talking about an event that's going to start this afternoon and this evening. But after watching yesterday's real press of a tornado that went through Watertown, South Dakota, the storms that went through parts of Minnesota into Iowa and Illinois this morning, I just know that the atmosphere is ready to do this and ready to make severe damaging winds. And all to the south of it, it's going to just be heat wave. I mean, just the heat is on in a big way. So yes, this is a pretty adverse time of year with respect to the weather pattern.
Well, you bring up the heat wave and more that's kind of fueling some of this. And, my question is, are we going to break this heat wave anytime soon, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, it is soon. It's been with us for a while. We have now seen possible pollination issues across the eastern corn belt. Many have experienced, I'm talking about widespread issues, but we know that we've had very, very hot overnight lows in the eastern corn belt now going back about 40 days. And this is just going to be the end of the heat wave that we've been enduring right now. So here it is. Excessive heat watches, warnings, advisories all throughout the Mississippi, Missouri, and Ohio basin, just a huge part of the country. And it's all about to break down. The North Pacific was the signal. There had been a massive ridge that built out there. And now we see it broken down into a trough. It's going to open the whole pattern up. Front's going to drag through. And from the beginning of this week to the end of this week, we could see better than a 30-degree swing in high temperatures. So if you don't like it, just wait. It is going to change. Unfortunately, it's going to break to the tune of nasty, severe storms running over the top of the ridge before it gets out of here. Now, don't get settled. Don't think that we're done with heat. This pattern has had a cadence to it. We expect by mid-August, getting into the end of August, another just wave of high temperatures to move through. So that's certainly been in the cards for a while. So there's still a lot of summer to go. We have questions as to whether or not the heat that's been here, especially the hot overnight lows, has impacted the quality and size of the crop. But Jesse, I'll tell you, when you just stare it from the road, stare it from space, the crop looks pretty good across the Midwest. I'm talking about both corn and soybeans. By the way, it's interesting to say this, but with the heat collapsing mid to late week, the North Plains still need more heat. They're actually behind on heat. And compared to a year ago out west, I mean, California had its warmest July on record last year. And right now it's having its second coldest. So just think about where we've been with this heat as of late. Just a major flip flop in the pattern out there. By the way, a cold summer in California is still hot, so just some perspective.
Well, I would say I'd flip some of that heat from here in Middle Tennessee up to the Northern Plains. I think it's 25 or 26 straight days of
Yeah,
90 plus degrees, which
it's gross.
I've had my fill for a while. But I wonder about this too. You mentioned maybe some heat coming back later in August, but we have to think about the tropics too and what effects that could have on the weather pattern. And with you in Florida this week, you're sitting right there next to the Atlantic. So, what's the latest you're seeing as we get into August? Is there anything showing up on some of these models as we think about hurricane season?
Oh, you can always find a model that'll show you a hurricane. They love to make, the new artificial intelligence forecast is trying to like absolutely clobber this area and up the East Coast about 12 days from now. But we always with a grain of salt. We have to look at the dynamics of the atmosphere to see if this is possible. So the reality is there's very dry, dusty air. The pressure pattern a year ago was much lower. This year it's much higher. So low pressure centers are what creates hurricanes. So if the environment is already ready for that, we have an active season. We don't have that this year. As I mentioned, Saharan dust blowing across the open Atlantic Ocean as well. Vertical instability is too high. We've had pressure patterns, as I said, too high. And while the ocean temperatures are warm enough to support this, you've got to get these other boxes ticked to make it go. So if you ask me, I think we're going to be talking more about a back half loaded hurricane season, which is like let's start it in at the beginning of September and then carry it through, October. That seems to be the most active time frame. But the reality of it is that we've there's nothing cooking today that just wants me to tell you that, oh, you better watch this in the tropics. In fact, I think the thing to watch in the tropics is way over in the Indian Ocean. That's what's going to help determine if the atmosphere is going to be set up to give us the risk of heat later on. So there's still many, many moving pieces in this pattern, and I wouldn't say that it's set. I would just tell you, watch the cadence, watch the time period which it overturns, right? We tend to get these 10, 12, 13-day stretches, and then it breaks. 10, 12, 13-day break. That seems to be where it's at. And if it keeps that cadence, that'll tell us how August is going to go.
Well, Eric, as we close it out here this week, anything final you would mention or anything you'd reiterate to folks as we're watching this week's weather patterns?
Yeah, just please have multiple modes of action today to stay weather aware in the Northern Plains, the Dakotas, Minnesota, Iowa, that being the main area here. The second thing is, yes, the heat's going to break. It's going to get much cooler, but I think it's going to roll back through with more heat later in the month. Now, heat's not a bad thing as long as it's not too hot or dry. And I would just tell you, I still think we're in a wash, rinse, repeat pattern. So there's a cadence to it. Watch out for it.
Agweather.com, ag-wx.com for more information. Eric Snodgrass, Nutrient Ag Solutions. Thanks for joining us again this week, Eric. Have a good one. We'll talk to you next week.
Yep, sounds good, Jesse.